why were most of you in the mob Democrats when you were in the life, but Republican or, independent, center right, whatever you want to call it, once you guys left the life? That's kind of interesting to me. I keep talking to guys where, even Leonetti, even Sammy, some of these guys, well, Leonetti's still on the Democrat, but why were some of these guys Democrats when you were in the life? What happened? What changed?
Well, I think with Trump, because Trump is a New Yorker and he's got that way about him, we're attracted to him. For me, it's about his policies, but I won't get into that. But on the street, we hated the Republicans because they were the law and order party.
Got it.
The Democrats were easier to corrupt. Every politician that we knew that we corrupted, they were all Democrats. Every single one.
Unpack that. What do you mean by that?
Guys that we had on the payroll, guys that would do us favors, guys that got me licenses for my gas business, they were all Democrats.
So if you went up to a Republican saying, listen, I need a gas license, what would they say to you? Or did you not even approach?
We didn't do it. We didn't approach it.
Because you knew
There's
they were
plenty
not...
of Democrats around to do it.
So you
had
in
the 80s? When is this?
Yeah, 80s, 70s, 80s, yeah, all the way through.
But dude, the start of the Democratic Party with Tammany Hall and with Boss Tweed, I mean, the big tent idea is, vote early, vote often, Chicago politics. I mean, it's pretty well documented, man. Your folks are not exactly the most noble creatures walking the face of the earth there.
It's like my dad hated Ronald Reagan.
Don't let him bully you, bro. Seriously.
Ronald Reagan's a rat. He's a rat. He doesn't like Italians. He goes after all the mob guys. Well, Dad, that's his job. You're supposed to come after.
Oh, your
us.
dad said that to you about Reagan.
Yes.
So your dad was a Democrat.
Democrat, all the way.
Interesting.
And like I said, the guys that we were closest to, they were all Democrats.
So Democrats were more friendlier with the mob, and they were okay with looking away and letting you do your thing. So Hoover, Kennedy, these guys were like, listen, you guys do, as long as you do your thing and you do us favors, we're going to leave you guys alone.
Joe Kennedy was a bootlegger, you know that.
Mm-hmm.
He was involved in Prohibition.
Yeah.
He was close with Costello and a couple of guys that knew him well. That's how this whole deal came together with the Kennedys. I meet Esposito. I mean, it's public knowledge now. He was very close to a good friend of mine, Fritzie Giovanelli, and another guy I don't want to mention him. He's still around. And, Fritzie was with Chin Giganti. Meade did us a lot of favors.
Yeah.
Mario Biaggi, the same thing. These guys passed on now. Cuomo.
Well, how much of this? Sorry, Pat. How much of this is because for a long time the unions did represent the working man, and you guys were the working man, and the Democratic Party wanted to represent the working man, and this was part of the fabric of everyday life.
Yes.
So it's one thing that they were corruptible, but I'm sure just to play devil's advocate and to unbreak Adam's heart, it's like I'm sure like in some way there was a wink and a nod, like how much more money do these rich Republicans need? How much more money do these robber baron Nixon Republicans need, man? So I mean, it's like, what am I gonna come down on the guy that what's he doing, running numbers? Come on, so I mean, how much of it was like that?
And don't get me wrong, it wasn't that we were selective. We had to go with a Democrat. We didn't care if you're Democratic, Republican, Independent, or whatever. It just so happens that the guys that were easiest to get to were Democrats.
You're saying you don't care about the red or the blue, you care about the green.
Exactly. We didn't care who it was.
Right.
I'm interested in the structure you talked about before, because you're talking about the way that you guys were able to build out, the way that you were able to build out, infiltrate all parts of life. You guys had this corporate structure. The commission was one of the first true C-suite boards in America. But you guys don't have. I'm assuming you don't have user manuals, and there's no orientation. It's not. No. You're not going away on a weekend trip.
Well, eventually was a user manual. There eventually was a user manual, and that's what they used to come after them.
A Bonanno?
The Bonanno book was the user manual. So he gave that up to everybody.
So for years before that, how was the structure passed on? It was just word of mouth? Or I can't imagine there was a mafia orientation. Well, congratulations on being a made man. Come this way and we'll teach you your day one on.
What's Code Red in the Marines?
I only know because of one of my favorite movies of all time,
That's
and I'm assuming.
It's a sick movie, right?
Yeah.
But Code Red was a real thing for a long time. But
was it really?
Of course it was.
Wow.
But it's not something that you talk about, right? There's a lot of things. I don't know who I was talking to, Michael, that said, the best guy he dealt with, I don't know if it was Sugarman, I don't know who it was. And one of these guys I spoke to, he said the best gangsters were the ones, like Meyer Lansky never wrote anything down on paper. He was, even Harvey Keitel, when they wrote the movie, he talks about it in there, says never write anything down on paper. Everything was here.
Exactly.
The guys that did it right, they tracked, like if they knew this guy owed him 10 grand or 20 grand, It wasn't written anywhere like an Excel spreadsheet. Hey, Mr. Director, it was like, hey, you know what you did last month? Where's that $10,000? What do you mean $10,000? Well, I know what you did. This cat. So it was a lot of memorization. The guys that did it
100%.
right. So you almost had to have a certain skill. That's not a duplicatable.
Exactly.
Skill
Patrick,
set.
I want to tell you this, and this is the God's honest truth. I never wrote anything down. Before I went to prison, I would never forget a phone number. I would never forget who owed me money. I never forget a name. Never.
At that
Everything
level, you're
was
making
here.
that much money, and you never.
Never forget anything. When I went to prison, and this is the truth, so many guys would hit me up with deals and stories and this that I would, I would let it go in one ear, one out the other. When I come out of prison, I couldn't remember a name, a phone number, or anything else.
Wow.
And it stuck.
You were locked in. You were in the zone.
Locked in. But
Well,
back
back
then,
in the day,
well, you know, my
That's
father
not
taught me.
duplicatable, by the way.
Right.
My
Yeah.
father used to tell me the telephone is a cop. That's how you look at the phone. When we were in my house in Roslyn, Long Island,
Yep.
when my dad wanted to talk to me when he was on parole, he's, come on, let's go. We'd either take a walk, and he would talk to me like this, like a pitcher on the mound. Talk to me like that. Or we would go into the bathroom. He would turn on the faucets. We would lean our heads into the faucet, and he'd be standing there flushing the toilet to make sure that nobody can hear anything.
Wow.
He ingrained that in me.
Wow.
I never got caught on a wiretap. I never had any of that stuff that I had to worry about because I was not, I don't want to use the word paranoid. I was extremely careful.
Has
when it
any
came
of
to
that stuck around till today or no? Like, you know how sometimes, like I was born in Iran, so if I hear a certain alarm, like it takes me straight back to Iran. If I hear a
100%.
certain noise, is it still in there?
Same
or?
way. And truthfully,
crazy,
Patrick,
yeah.
I hate talking on the phone. I still don't like it. I'm not comfortable with it.
If you live that life, there's some of
I'm
that
not
stuff
just
in
on
the
your
stick.
cell phone, you don't.
Yeah.
I don't like to talk on the phone. If you see I have very few phone calls.
His dad is saying the phone's a cop, and everybody is like, "Hi, cop. What is the name of?"
Yeah.
You're using
Yeah.
Siri as
So,
Google, right?
But you made a comment about Mario Cuomo. Kai, do you have that video about Mario Cuomo, what you guys talked about, as well as what Giuliani said about Mario Cuomo? If you have that, I wouldn't mind, because when we were sitting down, go ahead.
No, it's great baseball player as well, Mario Cuomo. For people that don't know, he was a big Yankee prospect that got one of the biggest signing bonuses of all time at one point.
But by the way, he was a guy that was loved and admired by a lot of people from both sides, based
Yes.
on what you read about the guy, respected. So I asked you guys about Mario Cuomo. Comments came up. It was not necessarily intentional, just kind of came up, and you guys both said, maybe if you want to share it, you guys both talked about how Mario's involvement, it was,
Yes.
in the mob. It was,
Yes. He was friendly with guys on the street, no doubt. No doubt.
So here's what Rudy said about Mario Cuomo. Kai, if you want to play it, it's, by the way, and with Rudy, we sat down for 3.5 hours at his place.
Oh, if he could have, he would have kept you there all day.
Oh, and if we release what Giuliani said, I don't, some of the stuff that Giuliani, that may be episode 8, 9, 10 that people have to watch it.
Oof.
But some of the stuff that he says, it's going to be, it's not going to be good for some folks out there. So, but go ahead, play what Giuliani said about Sammy. Many names were brought up. So I asked him, I said, who was easier to bribe? When you were a mobster, was it the Republicans, the Democrats? Who was it? They said, not even close. It was always easier to bribe and buy, Democrats. I said, give me names. Anybody that maybe you work with, they can talk about. And we started kind of going through a list of names. They spoke very favorably about Mario Cuomo, Governor Mario Cuomo.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, and they said very good things, but they also said we had him in our pockets. Meaning
I know
the fact. So
They had him. They had him in their pocket, somewhat because of his own limitations in his thinking, and somewhat because of his wife. So his wife's family, and I hate to say this because she's a lovely woman. I think Matilda is just a grand lady, but this is part of the Italian experience. Had mafia connections. And the governor was always afraid that if he ran, they would be exploited. And I opposed Mario in the sense of my political philosophy was completely different than his, certainly at that point in my life. Even though I endorsed him for governor, well, I'll explain why later. I needed the money for the city.
All you need
I
to know about
always thought
politics right
Mario
there, by the way.
overdid it.
All you need to know.
I don't think, I know, and really can't quite describe in detail to you, it wouldn't be right, the details of it. And it's not nearly as serious as he thought it was. I mean, it's the kind of thing you could easily explain as had nothing to do with Matilda, had nothing to do with Mario. And it's the kind of thing that happened back in those days when you had to conduct a business, and if you didn't play ball with them, they were victims. They weren't. They easily could have been interpreted that way. That's the way I interpreted it. But he saw shadows about it. You know how sometimes people are more embarrassed about something than they should be? I always thought that was the case with Mario. Largely because he was very ethical and a very good man.
Mario was.
Yeah, very, very good man. And someone I respected greatly.
Yeah.
Even though I thought some of his political ideas were outdated, that whole thing about, there's two Americas, one for the rich, one for the poor. I think that ended during the Depression. And I didn't think if he ran, he would get elected. I thought he could be nominated, but I thought his message was too
Kyle, you can
outdated, and I don't think
So,
Thoughts?
I agree with him. Yeah, I definitely agree with him. I mean, he was a friend to us. I put it that way. Unlike his sons.
Andrew, well, he's. It's good to know though that he actually isn't, abusive or handsy. He's just Italian. So there's that.
Who now?
Andrew Cuomo. That's what he said. He didn't abuse any of those women. He's just Italian. We're handsy.
You know what his downfall really was? He's a bully, and he turned everybody against him.
Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew. He's an abusive type of guy. He wasn't well liked. He had some loyalty that he bought, just people around him. But at the end of the day, when you're a bully and you mistreat people like that, the tide is going to turn.
Now, some may say, Michael, Trump is a bully. Okay, would you say, because the argument could go from the other side? Well, Trump bullied a lot of guys as well on his way up.
But you know what? The people around Trump really like him.
Interesting.
The Paul Manaforts, the Corey Lewandowskis, people that were close to him, they like him. Now, look, you can say what you want about Trump. I believe Trump really cared about America. He cared about it. And whether it was his ego or whatever it is that he wanted to be the best possible guy he can be in there for the country, I think that's what he wanted to be. Whatever motivated him, I don't know. But I feel it really meant something for him to do well for the country, for America that he believed in. And that's why I supported him.
Would you have been able to accomplish what you accomplished in the gas cam without Mario Cuomo's help?
Yes, because the licenses I obtained were not through Cuomo.
Okay.
It was somebody else. But I needed those licenses, and they were tough to get. And I was able to get them. And that's what kind of separated me from a lot of the guys, because I had 18 licenses. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't, unless you indicted me and put me in jail, you couldn't stop my business.
So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.